Carlos, thanks for sitting down with me for this conversation. I know that advocacy is something that you and I are both passionate about, and I'm excited to talk about what role advocacy can and should have in the Christian life. So my first question is, I wonder if you could share with us your definition of advocacy.
Well, I think that's an inherent part to our vision as Christians. We try to influence the world so that we can better reflect the values of the kingdom of God. And that's what we normally do when we try to talk to authorities. We talk to children, to women, to young people, so that they can see those values exemplified through our perspective and our work. And we do that at many different levels.
I often say to our audience that one of our values at ASJ-US is acompañamos. We walk alongside ASJ-Honduras. And there are several ways that we do that. We pray for and alongside ASJ-Honduras. We offer our financial resources to advance and support the work that ASJ-Honduras is doing. And I think another really important way that we acompañar, walk alongside ASJ-Honduras, is with our voice. Especially as American citizens, the decisions of the American government significantly impact Honduras. And I believe it's part of our calling in this common work that we share together to pursue justice in Honduras for us at ASJ-US to continue to find ways to use our voice to walk alongside ASJ-Honduras in the work that you do. So can you share a little bit more about what role you think advocacy plays and should play in the larger work of justice?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that the U.S. has historically had a relationship and a bond with Honduras for several reasons. One reason is geopolitical and the other economic. Honduras is 2 hours away from the U.S., so for Hondurans, it is a very large and important commercial market, which can be a very good opportunity. The policies that the U.S. designs, such as their foreign policy, will always have an impact on Honduras. Considering the socio-economic situation in Honduras, our hope is that these policies will contribute to the well-being, the progress, and the increase of justice in the country. But for that to happen, the U.S. leadership must get to know Honduras. And that's where ASJ-US and our friends can help us to show an objective image of the reality of Honduras. Then, the North American leaders can decide in a more effective way. So that's why it's very, very important for us to have that connection. For us as Hondurans, it's more difficult. But if we have a link that connects Honduras and this leadership, of course we can have better and more effective results.
That's great. In theory, the United States system of government responds to the will of the people, and in Honduras and other democracies as well. And that's why what you said is so important for us to realize that ASJ-Honduras can try to help the US government understand the situation in Honduras all they want, but when US citizens and voters lift that up to our elected officials, it carries that much more weight. But a lot of people in the US, understandably, feel nervous about doing advocacy. I think a lot of people believe that political and partisan are the same thing. So people say they don't want to be political, but in fact, what they're saying is they don't want to be partisan. Can you help us understand if it's possible to do advocacy that's political, participating in our political process, but not partisan? And if so, how?
Of course, it's possible because I do it all the time. I don't identify with any particular political party in Honduras, and I have relationships with the leadership of the different parties. And I think that's the key. We have to define our goals, what it is that we want, and the goal of every politician should be to bring about the well-being of their people. And our goal as ASJ is precisely to bring about the well-being of our people. This requires relationships, and those must be built. That takes time. It is not only necessary to know a politician as a figure, it is necessary to interact with them. And when there is a relationship, working together is much easier. Imagine I call a politician and maybe he won't answer his phone if he sees Carlos Hernández is calling because that name might mean nothing to him. But when there is a relationship, when there is a belief in the common goals, working together becomes possible. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a friendship. The important thing here is to be clear about the goals. Sometimes it will just be a very cordial relationship, and the politicians respond to me in a cordial manner. But at other times, they respond to me in a hesitant manner because they know that I have facts, that I am objective, that I have relationships with other leaders, and that the statements that I make could perhaps affect their political interests. For that reason, they will be willing to listen to me and to sit down with me. And through that communication, we then begin to build and to think about how can we achieve that well-being for our people that we are supposed to agree on. So I insist that this is a process. It takes time, but we have to begin somewhere. We have to build relationships, and a relationship is key. You and I are talking here because you have a goal and you say our value is to acompañar, and that's why we talk. So I think we shouldn't be afraid and have to remove the stigma of thinking, I can only do this if I am a member of X political party. The example I always give is this. Imagine I want to invite my friend to come to church with me. I've been a member of my church all my life, and my friend hasn't. But I think maybe there are some values of the church that can help my friend. Since he is my friend, he might come with me once and maybe he will never come back. But our relationship remains. There is a bond between us. I think that keeping those bonds should be something natural in us.
That's great. I love that answer. I love relationship as a starting point. A lot of us probably can't have the kinds of relationships that you have with high-level candidates, high-level members of Congress, but we can build relationships with staff members of our elected officials. Our elected officials have staff right here in our own cities, wherever we are. And I've learned that a lot of times, most of the work happens at the staff level and is done by the staff. So to your point of just making a start, we can start by making a phone call and writing an email and getting to know who are the staff members of my elected officials in this area and starting to build that relationship with them.
The staff can either make it or break it. I usually have communication with the assistants of many politicians. The assistants can open the door or close it. I think that is very important, but I insist. Once the door is opened, it is important to make ourselves known. To be known, we must know what we want, and there must be common goals as well. If there is a political leader who has a project on an issue that is not of my interest, I naturally won't want to engage. And it's the same the other way around. I think it's my job to identify common interests, passions, and a common vision. It's just like a normal relationship. If I love coffee, then it's possible that our relationship starts by talking about the quality of the coffee or talking about other things like cycling. And so I think that's it. The biggest mistake we can make is to dehumanize others and label as bureaucrats or technocrats. I insist on this. Life is a relationship, and the politician, no matter how high he is still a person, a human being, and that is important. And even when I am going to be questioning them strongly, I must also protect their dignity. Since it's not a personal issue, I can say, look, your position as a politician is affecting thousands of people. I have to separate their position and their work from their personhood, because nobody wants to feel attacked in a personal way. And sometimes it is difficult. And it is difficult for me. And there have been times where I have to think wisely about my response to a politician's action. Because in the end, that politician could be a father, a son, and he might have a wife. And if I forget that, I might put a barrier up, and maybe he will not want to engage in the future. So, one of the biggest mistakes of those who want to do political advocacy is that sometimes we focus a lot on attacking the person, calling them corrupt, delinquent. We use any adjective and we speculate, which is a mistake. So, part of what we have to do is to plan and be smart.
I think that's really wise. And I think that's something that the church has to offer in this moment. Christians have to offer in this moment. Honduras is deeply polarized. The US is deeply polarized. And the temptation for everyone is to dehumanize and demonize. But if we can start from a place of determination to protect the dignity of the people that we are engaging with and the discipline of recognizing the image of God in each person, then I think Christians can help heal some of our divides and teach the world how to engage in political advocacy in more healthy ways. So I have one more question for you. If somebody is listening and they want to put their faith into action through advocacy, but it feels too big, they're not sure how to get started, what is a first step that you would recommend for someone like that?
First of all, and I think I mentioned it before, it is a relationship that has to be built with evidence and data. There is a phrase I often use at ASJ: the truth has power. And if I manage to show the truth, the real truth, with data and objectivity, maybe tomorrow, next month, or next year, that truth will find space to germinate. Again, one of the biggest mistakes we can make is to speculate. And it is difficult to convince a politician who is an expert in convincing others with speculation. So we start by building relationships, then research and generate data with transparency. We need to show them that we have a clear goal and that we think they can be key to achieving it. And maybe the answer will be, I'm not interested, but at least I have presented the truth, and I am going to tell this truth, I am going to spread it. And they can take advantage as politicians and capitalize their image with this truth, or on the other hand, this truth can affect them. Then comes the other step, which is negotiation. Politicians are always looking for something in exchange. And we would be very naive if we believe that politicians will react without finding something that benefits their project, because in the end, they feed on the good image they can generate of themselves for their public and with their audience. So I believe even for small actions in our city, like setting up a no parking sign, citizens still need the authorization of their elected officials, who are politicians. And that goes for bigger projects as well. But there has to be communication first. Then there has to be evidence presented. And finally, we can have a negotiation.
I like what you hinted at in your answer, which is that sometimes you can do everything right and tell the truth, and someone still doesn't want to listen to you. But if you have the truth, then simply speaking that truth is enough. And that God doesn't always call us to be successful, but he calls us to be faithful. In advocacy, I think that's especially important to remember because, like you said, it takes time. And sometimes you have success and sometimes you don't. But if we're being faithful, then that's what God calls us to.
Exactly. And we have to be perseverant, and we have to understand that it is a process, that relationships are built over time. Sometimes it's fast. In my case, it took me 5 years to convince my wife, but that's another matter. But for others, it might be only 1 month. I've been married to my wife for 31 years. It might sound funny, but that's how it is. It is a relationship. The ideal would be that a politician's goal to acquire power is to do good and to support the people. And it is my responsibility as a citizen to keep them accountable to do that. Because in the end, it is the community, it's the people that have delegated them with power to work for their well being. So it is my responsibility to point out the good that they're doing, but also call them out for the bad, to suggest how they can continue doing the good and how they can correct the bad. So I am not asking them to do me a favor, but rather I am carrying out my responsibility to inform them, to give them data, and to demand that they do their job. And they must listen to me. They must analyze what I give them and make decisions for the benefit of the people. So when we both understand that, it is ideal, but in politics, it doesn't always happen.
That is definitely the truth. Thank you, Carlos, for your time, for your wisdom.
Ok.
Ahora vamos a comer esos postres.
Las semitas. Uy.